Hello, welcome to
Hello.
Brits American Tour. You and me, BP1 and BP2. Today
Hello.
we are checking out, allegedly, um,
Okay.
the most miserable city in America.
Oh, right. Okay.
Eh? Eh? Happy-go-lucky place in America. Yes,
Okay.
so look forward to it,
Well, let's.
actually.
Okay. Well, if it does turn out to be your city, please pop in the comments and let us know if they are correct or why you disagree with what's coming up. So, where are the lucky people on today's episode?
Well, today, I mean, this looks like a place I really want to go to. This is Gary in
Ah,
Indiana. Some of you may
Gary,
or may not
Indiana.
have shouted that at the screen already before we started.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know much about this. My City Beautiful, good, a good channel, which we'll be
Okay.
following up with some stuff on there. So yeah, the most miserable city in America. Let's do it.
Let's see if it lives up to its grand title. Let's
Let's
go.
let's go.
Gary, Indiana. Or at least it used to. A while
Ah.
back, the neighboring city of Hammond was resurfacing this road and decided it was better to add a berm at the end of it so it didn't lead to Gary anymore. The fewer the
Right.
connections, the better, was
So
the
we just
thinking.
blocked it off.
And when you do get into Gary, it feels like a whole different world.
Right.
It's
Right.
emptier, quieter, with vacant homes and overgrown lots. It's like a city forgotten, despite being in one of the largest metropolitan
Look at
areas in
that.
the
That'd be a
United
nice
States.
place.
It was once a thriving steel city, and its former glory days are
Steel,
apparent
yeah,
in the
yeah.
stunning, if crumbling, architecture. This steep decline in fortunes led Business Insider to label Gary the most miserable city in the United States in 2019.
Poor Gary.
They based the
Okay.
rankings on statistics like unemployment and poverty rates. Business Insider is only the latest in a long line of publications dissing the city. Time magazine called Gary, Indiana, the very model of urban decay. As
Oh,
early as the 1950s, it was described as full of sin,
That.
crime, and open immorality. This immorality was
really?
shrouded in a black pall of smoke from the steel mills.
Wow.
In 1994, Gary was dubbed the murder capital of the US, as it had the highest rate of murders per capita of any city in the country.
Did it?
Today, it doesn't even crack the top 10 most dangerous places in Indiana, let alone the United States. It
There's no one
feels
there.
hollowed out,
No,
as
yeah.
its population has dropped from 178,000 in 1960 to just 69,000 today. Now, Gary's story is a lot like other Rust Belt cities in the United States, but the fall here was greater. Now, one question I have, because I'm a bit of an optimist, is there a turnaround in store for Gary? So let's talk about Gary's history and its future after the bike belt.
Yeah, this is it, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
This video is actually a personal one for me because my wife is from Northwest Indiana, from this region, and my father-in-law was actually born and raised here in Gary. I used to drive to college through this area and wondered who lived here, and it turns out my future wife did, and now I'm spending a lot of my vacation time here in Gary in Northwest Indiana. So I've always been fascinated with this city, and I'm so excited to be doing a video about it. So let's get into the history. If you drive through Gary on Interstate 90, you can't miss Gary Works. It was the largest steel mill in the
Okay.
world for many years and is still the largest in North America. Pittsburgh may be known as the steel.
My brain just worked out where Gary actually was in the map.
Right.
Because I was thinking, now where is that? Obviously,
Funny, isn't it? Yeah,
near
yeah.
Chicago-ish,
Yeah.
just round
Up
the
around
the bend
the
there.
lake.
So now
Yeah,
my
yeah.
brain knows exactly where Gary is. Is always
Okay.
helpful.
City, but no city's fortunes have been tied closer to steel than Gary. In fact, U.S. Steel founded Gary, and the name comes from Albert Gary, the founding chairman of
Gary,
U.S.
Gary.
Steel. Its location at the southern end of Lake Michigan is no accident. U.S. Steel owned iron mines throughout the region, and this
Yeah.
area could receive shipments via Great Lakes Freighter or railroad. The Standard Oil refinery in nearby Whiting proved a model for U.S. Steel, as it succeeded in the same strategic location. The city was
okay.
founded in 1906, and the mills produced their first steel in 1909. U.S. Steel understood that they needed to build a city for its workers, as it was too far away from Chicago for regular daily commuting before the freeway era. They needed to build a company town, and Gary would eventually grow to be the largest company town in the United States.
Really?
Many past company towns came with a big dose of paternalism. Company founders would want to create cities to ensure its residents were
That's true.
moral,
Capri
upstanding,
Yeah,
diligent
we
workers.
we've done the
Yeah.
same.
This often meant that the company owned the
Bill
homes the
Bars.
workers lived in and the stores they shopped at. Great for the company, not so great for the workers. One famous example is nearby Pullman, Illinois, home of the company that built fancy railroad cars. It was by all accounts a
Pullman,
nice-looking
yeah.
village, and George Pullman hoped it could be a model for urban planning. But when the factory had to cut hours due to lower demand for the rail cars, they didn't cut rents or prices in the company's stores.
Yeah.
Workers rose up, and the ensuing Pullman strike is one of the defining events of the
I
U.S.
see,
labor
yeah, that's
movement.
Always
The Illinois
a
Supreme
risk.
Court ruled that the company had to divest its ownership of non-factory property, and the city was annexed into Chicago. This all happened in 1894, only 12 years before Gary was founded. U.S. Steel wanted to avoid that outcome. Thus, Gary was planned as a community where workers would own their own homes and democratically elect their own completely separate city government. The lack of paternalistic vision was probably wise, but it led to a rather bland urban design. Fifth Avenue and Broadway were the two major thoroughfares, with Broadway leading directly to Union Station and U.S. Steel. The rest of the city was divided up into a grid with 40 houses per block, connected by streets that were quite wide, at 80 to 100 feet. There was one big problem with the plan to have employees own their own houses.
Yeah.
Most employees did not make enough to build a home or buy a newly built one. Many workers ended up in tents, or three-room shacks that could house up to 20 workers. U.S. Steel got into home construction to try and house more workers, but even their modestly priced housing was out of reach of the lowest paid unskilled workers. Land promoters and speculators built ramshackle barracks and tenement housing to fill the gap. The fledgling city government had no regulations that required amenities like running water, so they were absolutely terrible places to live. Gary may have avoided the paternalistic model of Pullman, but created their own sort of urban anarchy. The situation was made worse by a lack of public open space. The mills spread across the entirety of Gary's lakeshore, so there's no recreation there. The only recreation scene can be found in the local taverns. By the 1910s, there was one tavern for every 88 Gary residents.
Yeah,
even at this early stage in the history of Gary, it had a reputation for being bigger than life, an industrial colossus, but also a den of sin, filled with low-wage single men spending what little they had on alcohol and gambling. From this inauspicious start, Gary grew with the fortunes of the steel industry. The population doubled between 1920 and 1940, and reached a peak of 178,000 in 1960. With population growth came demographic change. Much of the early growth had been from Eastern European immigrants, often discriminated against by white workers who had been in the country for a generation or more. Those Eastern European immigrants forged tight-knit communities that characterized Gary's early history. Gary was also a destination for Southern black workers as a part of the Great Migration, a demographic shift that saw millions of black Americans resettling in industrial cities of the North. As the new minority in town, black workers faced discrimination, and by the 1940s and 1950s, white workers had begun to move out of Gary to nearby suburbs, an example of the white flight phenomenon. This exodus became a flood after 1967. This was a mayoral election year, and incumbent Mayor Martin Katz had the endorsement of the Democratic Machine and Union Steelworkers. But black residents favored Richard Hatcher, a moderate who campaigned on ending patronage and cleaning up corruption. Hatcher won, becoming with Carl Stokes of Cleveland the first black mayors of major American cities. Many white residents took that as their cue to leave, not willing to live in a city where black residents made up the majority and having a mayor that was also black. Gary's population declined between 1960 and 1970, the first time in its history.
That's not
Meanwhile,
that long ago, is it,
Gary
really?
became the center of the black political landscape, hosting the 1972 Black Political Convention. Black residents of Gary during this time were proud of their city and happy to have some measure of political control. It's unfortunate, then, that this change in political landscape came at the exact moment U.S. Steel began to lay off its workers. In 1967, 65% of Gary workers were employed at Gary Works. That's an insanely high percentage for one employer. During this era, 30,000 people worked there. But Gary's steel mills began to fall victim to deindustrialization. This is when one region's industries decline, often because it becomes cheaper to import the same goods from somewhere else. This phenomenon struck the entire Rust Belt of the U.S. hard, but perhaps none as hard as Gary. U.S. Steel cut thousands of jobs in the 1970s and 1980s. Production at the mills actually picked up in the 80s and 90s, and they were producing as much steel as ever, but automation had rendered most jobs obsolete. By the 1990s, only about 6,000 people worked in the steel mills.
6,000.
What happens when a hastily built company town sees massive job losses from its primary employer, while also succumbing to extreme levels of white flight? Well, Gary's population plummeted. By 1990, only 116,000 people lived in the city. The population freefall continues to the present day. The recently released 2020 census shows Gary is home to only 69,000 people. It's lost over 100,000
Wow.
residents in 60 years. Today, only about 3,000 people work at the plant. Cities aren't
3,000.
designed to lose population, especially not this
no.
fast.
Urban decay.
As cities
then,
grow,
It is,
they
isn't it?
add
Urban
infrastructure
decay,
like
you're
sewers,
right.
power lines, schools, libraries, and roads. Tax dollars pay for those services. When most people leave, the infrastructure is still there and costs money to maintain and operate. Without
You just
tax
don't do
revenues,
it.
these services can fall into disrepair.
That's it.
That's what's
So we
happening
just-
in Gary. 70,000 people who can't pay for a city meant for 170,000. As a result, the city is using what little money they have to demolish buildings, most notably its empty public schools. It's cheaper to demolish
Wow.
them than maintain them empty.
Cool.
Today,
Yep.
Gary only has one public high school left. It used to have a half a dozen. Many of Gary's churches
Wow.
are also empty and falling apart. There aren't enough people left to fill the pews. Is it possible to pull Gary out of this nosedive? Well, on paper, Gary has some real positive attributes.
No. Right, end the video. No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. Bit of humour. Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty rough, isn't it? I mean, you know, for something that
Well-
was such a... And this comes with the boom, doesn't it? The boom of
Yeah.
the steel industry and a huge decline. I mean, it's not just a 60-year decline.
But I mean, it's pretty much the same when our coal mining industry went into decline. Durham and those cities up around Newcastle
Yeah.
had the same thing, didn't they? People leaving there. But they're slowly coming back. And I mean, I think a big one in the US is Detroit. Motor City. When the cars left, that declined, but I think that's sort of being restored and coming back to looking nice again. So
Mm.
it can be done, but yeah, I mean it's a vast area, isn't it, Gary?
It is, yeah, it's pretty big. And yeah, it just makes me laugh, Gary. Corner sign.
What, Gary?
Right, Gary?
Gaza.
Gaza. I mean, Gary, I don't know how much of this is that a name in the US, but over here in the UK, that is quite a well-known person's name. So it's
Yeah,
quite
I
funny.
mean, well, they did say it was named after the founder, wasn't it? It was his middle
Yeah.
name. Yes, so
Okay, yeah.
Gaz.
All right, Gaza. Let's crack on.
It's still close to the city of Chicago, and you can catch a commuter rail that will take you to Millennium Station. Gary is also unique because its boundaries overlap with a national park, Indiana Dunes.
Right.
It has a minor league baseball team, the Railcats, who can still draw a crowd on game days. Miller Beach, a wealthier and whiter enclave of Gary, still has some life left in it. And housing,
I mean,
unsurprisingly,
that's
is extremely
impressive,
affordable
isn't it?
here.
Yeah,
The city's been trying to
yeah.
promote its airport as an option for a third Chicago airport. O'Hare and Midway are operating at capacity, and there is significant local opposition to expanding O'Hare. The state of Illinois wants to build an airport in-state, but Gary's
You're liking
airport could
Gary.
easily be upgraded to handle significant passenger volumes. If that happens, it would give Gary another economic engine besides steel. Schools and infrastructure remain a big concern, however. Gary has closed so many of its neighborhood schools that families may not want to relocate to the area. The biggest barrier, however, may simply be perception. In the 1990s, Gary was rife with gang activity and violence. It's doing better today, but an entire generation of people associate Gary with that reputation. But if you drive through
That's it.
Gary and look past the
Tarnish.
overgrown lots and empty streets, you see an amazing history. It had once been thriving, and I hesitate to count Gary out. It faces problems greater than any city its size,
not the biggest
and it
thing
has
out.
since it was founded back in 1906. But there is beauty here too, and I hope that the days of a growing Gary come soon. If Gary does make a comeback, it will truly be a fascinating story.
Hmm.
The kind of story you might find in one of the frequent short articles posted in Morning Brew, a free daily newsletter delivered to your inbox every day of the week.
Oh,
Morning
okay.
Brew keeps you up to speed on all the news.
Oh, is that, and that was it. Do you know what? Do you fancy going to Gary?
At the moment, no, unless you're an avid steelwork sort of
Historian.
historian, yeah. But I mean, like you say, it's one of those boom towns that were made for a purpose, habitat, by people that were workers there. And as soon as the work stops, they move on, don't they?
Yeah.
There's no loyalty to the region.
I think it is driving that, driving people to Gary. Like I say, with the airport, I mean, that'd be great. It'd create a lot
Yeah.
more jobs.
I mean, we're
you can
seeing
spin
similar,
things
aren't we,
up.
with little sort of local airports.
Yeah, that are
Before
making
we had Heathrow and
bigger
and Gatwick.
destinations. Yeah.
Yeah, now you got our sort of regional local airports that you know, my local one, Bristol, started off a tiny little place. It's thriving now, so it does work, you know. So, but
It's pretty
yeah,
cold up there, though, isn't it?
yeah, that is the problem. Because like I say,
Doesn't
you
help,
could
does
sort
it?
of you'd think they could make use of the sort of shoreline and turn that into something that was a destination place, but chilly. All right, there you
Shall
go,
they? All
Gary,
right.
Indiana. Do you live there? Have you lived there? Would you consider living there? Have you driven through it and thought, "Whew, lucky escape"? Thoughts in the comments below, please. Or if you know an even more depressing place than Gary, let us know that as well.
Right. Well, on that happy note,
Oh yes.
we'll make sure we'll see you soon. But do you agree? Yeah, like PP2 says, the most miserable city in America.
Mm,
Gary.
okay.
Poor old Gary.
Uh, Yes.
See you
Right.
tomorrow.
There
Maybe.
you
Bye.
go. Bye.